Chapter 4. Try Faith in a Plan. The title does not imply that one must outline step by step what he hopes to achieve, what he desires to accomplish, for this type of planning disregards the fact that a divine intelligence is active in our affairs. Too often this kind of planner cannot make the adjustment to an unexpected turn or development, and is thrown into a state of paralysis or inactivity by it. He has virtually said, "God, this is the way I want you to do this." He wants God to go along with him, not realizing that he should go along with God. He cannot realize that the new turn of events may in the long run be far better than the one he has outlined. But there is a kind of planning that is imperative. Even Jesus planned. If you recall, before the feeding of the 5,000 on the shore of Galilee, he asked Philip, "Whence shall we buy bread that these may eat?" And the next verse tells us that he himself knew what he would do. In the 12th chapter of the Epistle to the Hebrews, you will find a plan based on the right kind of activity, a plan which can transmute your mental pictures into a reality. St. Paul said, "Wherefore, seeing we are compassed about with a great cloud of witness, let us lay aside every weight, and the sin which doth so easily beset us. And let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus the author and finisher of our faith." There are 4 phases of St. Paul's direction. The first, compassed about with a great cloud of witnesses, implies that we must consider the lives of those around us, particularly those who accept the responsibility of living by the spiritual law. St. Paul was, of course, speaking of to the persons who were known to be followers of Jesus, those we refer to now as the first Christians. The second demand is that we lay aside every weight. The third challenges us to run with patience the race that is set before us, and the fourth to look to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Let us think through these 4 parts in turn. St. Paul was talking to people who were having a difficult time. He was trying to encourage them by telling them of others who had the same difficulties and overcame them, of those who were successful in the end. This was good psychology. It strengthened the faith of those who were still striving for mastery. Today we need this same type of encouragement. We need to see that some part of our time is spent in the company of those who are attempting to live by principle. We need to set aside a period of the day by reading articles and books that are helpful to our thinking and for meditating. These activities should be an integral part of our plan. We must awake to the truth that the potentiality of one is the potentiality of all, and know that what one person can do, another can do. We see around us those who have faced difficulty, sorrow, and tribulation, and have triumphed over these conditions. Of course, we see others who have been defeated. What is it that makes a difference between success and failure? Well, first of all, it is necessary to get the picture of success clearly and firmly fixed in your mind. Make an obsession of it. Keep it steadily in the forefront of consciousness. Know that with God's help you are going to succeed, and there is nothing in the universe that can interfere. Failure and success, like gloom and happiness, are habits. Some people develop such a consciousness of failure that there is no room in them for success. But the failure does not need to stay the way he is. Lord Halifax said, "If you hold a thought long enough, that thought will take you prisoner." That is a law of mind. A prisoner of thought, however, is a voluntary prisoner who can secure his release by changing his thinking. When we think of the cloud of witnesses that compass us about today, we must be aware of the great body of evidence that exists as to the effect on the life of struggling humanity, on its acceptance of oneness with God, of man's realization of his divinity, of his recognition of the Father within, of his awareness of the indwelling God. Then lay aside every weight, says St. Paul. That is to get rid of all the impediments you carry. Get rid of all this excess baggage that is weighing you down. Cast out your animosity, fear, worry, temper, and jealousy. Stop looking for trouble, for symptoms, for the worst. Forget the woes of the past. Develop a good forgettery. Memory is a wonderful faculty of the mind. To be able to retain information and recall events is often of great importance. Of greater importance to one's personal life, however, is the ability to drop from the mind bitterness, grief, unhappiness, and resentment. To be able to say, "I will hold this good in my memory, but that evil I shall cast from me." If you wish to be happy and successful, you must cultivate the art of forgetting. You must learn to be selective in what you remember. Many of our troubles are due to the memory of old hurts, guilts, old fears, resentment, dislikes, grudges, and old negative experiences. Sometimes we feed on these almost deliberately, regurgitating them as it were. Other adverse memories we push back by a supreme effort of will, and they often become a part of our subconscious mind. Understanding of oneself and faith in a power greater than we are essential to proper handling of disagreeable memories, which can truly become the weights of which St. Paul spoke. Norman Vincent Peale's comments on an address by Dr. John Schindler of Wisconsin are pertinent. He says, Dr. Schindler makes the point that in his country, 50% of the people who are ill are made so from psychosomatic causes. That is, that they are ill not because they succumbed to a germ or developed an organic disease or were victims of accidents, but because they allowed their thoughts and emotions to be set into wrong patterns. He quotes from the records of a clinic in New Orleans from a study that was made of 500 consecutive patients. 380, or 76%, were afflicted by psychosomatic causes. They were filled with fear. They had a sense of guilt. If they had all gone to church, read the Bible, prayed, had faith in God, and obeyed Him, attended to their own business and behaved themselves, they would not have been ill. That is about the size of it. This doctor, who must be a whimsical, salty Will Rogers kind of character, insists that psychosomatic is not an adequate name for this kind of disease. He calls it CDTs, for it is an accumulation of cares, difficulties, and troubles that take over the mind gradually. Like a cloud, they obscure the sun and leave one walking in a gathering mental darkness. Unless occasionally one breaks through this heavy covering of care, difficulties, troubles, and gets the mind into an area of joy, gradually he becomes a psychosomatic problem. These are the weights which St. Paul was talking about, and to recall them without destroying their power is most detrimental to the thinker. It doesn't make any difference whether a thought is old or new. The minute that you resurrect it, the instant that you put your attention upon it, it becomes active. The only sensible practice is to concentrate upon desirable experience and memories. No matter what the past has held, we can at any moment start all over again. St. Paul then tells us to run with patience. The patience referred to is not endurance, but perseverance and steadfastness. Man was not meant to beat out his life with pressure, friction, rancor, and burning discontent. He was given this world to live successfully and happily in. Patience is not a sign of weakness, but a strength. Waiting is not a sign of dawdling and drifting, but an alertness and expectancy. Wait, do not dig up and destroy your dream. Give it a chance to germinate and to grow. Set yourself, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you, said the Lord to the children of Judah. Did you ever count the failures that are due to impatience, the unfinished task, and the unanswered prayers? Their number is legion. Couldst not thou watch 1 hour? Asked Jesus of Simon Peter. Before God calls men to great tasks, he tests their patience. Moses was sent into the wilderness of Horeb to tend sheep. Elijah into the dried-up riverbed of Kedron. Paul lived in the desert of Arabia, and Jesus spent 40 lonely days in the wilderness of Judea. Not many of us realize how much our health and supply hinge upon patience. We are not naturally patient. When we want a thing, we want it now. We often desire it so intensely that if we cannot have it immediately, we lose all interest in it. The word patient is used many times in the Bible, and there are many marginal references to the word steadfastness. Resignation is sometimes given as a synonym for patience, but in our thinking they have a different application. If there is no way out of a given situation, resignation is the word. I think this point is well illustrated by the little boy whose aunt had died. A very religious man, under the old thought, met the little nephew on the street, and after expressing his sympathy asked the common question, "Was your aunt resigned?" The boy looked up to the man in amazement, and with a childlike abruptness and simplicity burnt out, "Resigned? Shucks, she had to be." Actually, this is what resignation amounts to. If you have to, you have to. If there is no way out of a situation, you must put up with it. You must accept it and make the best out of it. But the true idea of patience is that of steadfastness and perseverance. Jesus spent 30 years in training for a ministry of 3 years, but think of the power and far-reaching effect of that ministry. Compare it, for instance, with the training of metaphysical students who expect to arrive at spiritual maturity in 6, 8, or 10 weeks. Is it any wonder that so many stumble and fall by the wayside? They forget that it takes years to build a consciousness of truth. They are lacking in steadfastness and perseverance. "In your patience," said Jesus, "possess ye your souls." Most of us think of patience as a period in which we sit down, fold our hands, and do nothing. St. Paul said, "Run with patience." Get going and keep yourself in action, but remain calm. Stop trying to make things happen. Keep your light burning in the darkness. Do one thing at a time, but keep at it. Remember the jingle. All things come to him who waits. But here's a rule that's slicker. The man who goes for what he wants will get it all the quicker. Looking unto Jesus is Paul's third condition. The implication is clear. Stop depending upon willpower. Stop looking to others. Have an undivided mind. Look to God, the source of all good. To look to him in faith is to receive what you ask for. Leave yourself out of the picture altogether. Of mine own self I can do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the work, said Jesus of his miracles on earth. Think of the things people do when they forget self. Under the stimulus of some great emotion, man discovers strength and abilities that he did not know he had. In a fire, for instance, a 14-year-old girl drags a 200-pound man out of door to safety. An 80-year-old friend, seen a 500-pound barn door fall on a little boy, rushed forth and lifted it up by herself. She lifted what 2 or 3 men ordinarily could not have lifted. When you take your attention away from your problem and draw upon your inner strength, the problem disintegrates and falls away. Looking unto Jesus means that you must stop trying to think your way out of your difficulties. There is an easier and a much more permanent way of removing them. Until man realizes that God is greater than the instrument through which he expresses, he misuses and subverts the power that alone can make him whole. Peter thought that he could walk on the water with Jesus, and started bravely, but seeing the wind, he thought of himself and what he was doing and began to sink. If my little old lady friend who lifted the heavy door had thought of what she was doing, she could not have done it. She thought of the child's need. There is an explanation of her sudden access to power. Do you remember the words of Jesus as he took a child in his arms at Capernaum? Whosoever shall receive one of such children receiveth me. That all-inclusive statement that forces us not only to recognize our unity with God, but our unity with our fellow man. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. Before you can do that which cannot be done, you must not only be absent from the body or self, but present with the Lord, according to St. Paul. Looking unto Jesus means not only lifting up your mind to God, but surrendering all sense of personal responsibility, all notions about hurry, pressure, stewing, straining, fretting, and taxing of human strength. We must be absent from personality. We must forego fears, worries, disappointments, perplexities, jealousies, frustration, and despair. We must burn our martyr's crown. Is your body sick and weak? Then turn away from this outer appearance and look to God. Lift up your heart so that you may receive help directly from God. Claim his peace, his harmony, and his wholeness. Dare to sense his omnipotence as you make your claim for health. Have you a task to perform that causes you to doubt your ability? Are you jittery, fearful, undecided, worried, and puzzled? Then look unto Jesus and place yourself and your problem lovingly in his hand. Be patient, the answer will come. Turn your attention from self and look to God, and marvelous changes will take place. St. Paul has given us a wonderful 4-step plan. 1. Be receptive to spiritual help. 2. Live understandingly in the present. 3. Wait upon the Lord. 4. Recognize your unity with God. If we carry this plan out, if we pattern our lives on it with faith in our power to use the divine help that we know is available, we shall truly know that peace of God which we seek.